I have 7 o'clock. Is that good? Shall we begin?
Close enough.
Do we all rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Fryrick,
Here.
Mr. Posnell,
Here.
Mr. Robinson,
Here.
Mr. Sanders,
Here.
Mr. Scalette,
Here.
Mrs. Schrader,
Here.
Mr. Sears,
Here.
Mr. Sullivan,
Here.
Mr. Toman.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Reminder to please mute yourself rather than silencing your cell phones during the meeting. And this would be the first opportunity for us to look at public comments. Wendy, Vince, do we have any public comments? It's awful quiet. Do we have public comments?
You should be seeing them now, yes.
Okay, all right. I see your screen.
You see the form with the public.
I only see the lion.
I can see it, Vince. This is Joel.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
I can see it.
right.
There is also a link in the agenda for it as well.
Okay, there you go. Okay, has everybody had time?
Yeah, just, Vince, where is the link on the agenda? I don't see the, Vince, hello, to the comments?
Usually under public comments, Wendy has a link.
I don't see it there. Public comment form.
All right, I will have to double check it.
Thank you.
It's normally there,
Yeah, it's
but
not.
right now I'm
No.
a little handicapped, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Vince.
Okay. All right, we have the link to the planning committee meeting of August 31st, 2020. If there are no changes or concerns, I would submitted and corrected as they stand. Okay, Mr. Sears, Treasurer's Report.
Okay, we're beginning to collect some tax revenues, as you would expect. We haven't had much time to play them out. Our interest income for August, I estimated at about $7,363, with deposits of just under 40 million. So clearly the impact of interest rates at the federal level is being felt locally, and we're probably not going to see anywhere near the interest income this year that we have in past years. Back to the report consent agenda. Would any board member like any of the items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of the items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below mentioned items.
Second.
Questions or comments? This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. The board met in executive session in a virtual meeting format prior to this meeting as permitted by Section 707 of the Sunshine Act for purpose of discussing matters of personnel. No official action was taken. Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Posnow. The superintendent's report tonight. It's been more than a month since we began in-person instruction in a hybrid model. Other districts in York County have been educating their students in hybrid or fully open models anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks with mixed results, and one district is fully online. It is a bit early to tell yet whether these models will be successful. We are paying close attention to the data and from the Pennsylvania Department of Health and the other school districts and how they're experiencing their learning model. During this month, York Suburban has been open. We have had one confirmed case of COVID-19, either among students or staff, and there are a handful of students and 2 staff members who are currently in quarantine due to close contact of a suspected case. To date, we appear to be somewhat successful in avoiding the virus's spread, and I would like to thank everyone, students and staff, for their efforts in following proper safety measures. It is hard work. It is their hard work and diligence that creates a safe environment that we're experiencing right now. So I'd really like to commend students and staff for following all the guidelines, following the rules, and keeping people safe. As we navigate the pandemic, we'll be looking at the data to determine how and when we may change our learning mode from hybrid to some other format. In short, if the pandemic improves, we'll move toward a fully open model. If it worsens, we may move toward a fully online model. And there are several things that we're going to keep in mind as we figure out how to proceed. First, I'd like to mention that Mathematica, a company that devotes itself to scientific data, Pennsylvania Department of Education has engaged Mathematica to produce a nonpartisan third-party report related to the modes of learning in Pennsylvania schools. A key finding of the Mathematica report is that blended or hybrid approaches to school reopening dramatically reduce the total number of likely infections in the school. The report shows that for blended models that are part-time in nature, schools can almost eliminate the spread of COVID in school transmissions, and any spread would be community-based, not school-based. And our experiences thus far seem to correlate with Mathematica's findings. Now, as we try to figure out how to proceed, we do keep in mind the state guidelines. And Wendy, if you wouldn't mind putting up the first table that I have there as part of the report. The Commonwealth has quantified for schools its recommendations based on health data. Specifically, it uses incident rate and % positive rate to make recommendations about how schools in a county should proceed with educating students. And the table that you should be seeing on screen lists a chart that tells you what their recommendations are based on whether we're low spread, moderate spread, or substantial spread. And for most of the school year so far, we've been in moderate spread, fitting that criteria. And lately, York County has been creeping up to the substantial level. That doesn't mean we're going to change on a dime what we're doing. It's just another data point for consideration. The Commonwealth normally releases updated numbers each week on Fridays. They did release some information, but not the summary information that we were looking for this past Friday. But it does appear that the county is headed toward the substantial phase. So we're keeping that in mind as we figure out how to proceed. Any move toward a fully open model, though, will require a change to the board-approved health and safety plan. A move toward a fully online mode would not require modification of the health and safety plan. And so as we look at how we're going to proceed, we have to figure out when we're going to make certain decisions. Wendy, if you wouldn't mind putting up that next table. We have to consider all factors when discussing changes to the instructional model. York County has been in the moderate spread stage since we opened school, but it appears the numbers are heading toward the substantial. That in and of itself should not dictate how we proceed, but it is an important factor in proposing changes to the instructional mode. When considering changes, it seems most appropriate to do so at key points in the year. For us, that's marking periods. To that end, we have developed the following timelines for considering changes to what we're doing. So if you look at the table that you have on screen, you can see that the first column of information is for the start of the second marking period. The third column is for the marking period 3, and the second column is for marking period 3, and the third column is for marking period 4. So if we're going to make a change for marking period 2, we'd have to make that decision at the Monday, October 5th board meeting. And then you can see the dominoes as they fall during that progression for the change to happen on October 26th or 27th, really. We changed the rostering on the October 26th for the second marking period. And you can see likewise the timeframes for marking period 3 and 4 if we were to make a change. So the decision points are early October for marking period 2, December, right before Christmas for marking period 3, and February 22nd for marking period 4. And then we would follow that timeline to implement those changes. So that's the roadmap for if and when we make changes to instructional model. And keep in mind, we all want to get back to full-time instruction face-to-face because we do believe that that is the best way to educate students. But we have so many things to consider along that path. And those are the timelines we would use to do that. So there's a myriad of possibilities, but none of them are practical unless the COVID numbers in the community come down and we relax the 6-foot physical distancing requirement. Right now, the health and safety plan calls for 6 feet physical distancing, and we have as many people in the buildings right now as we can handle to honor the 6 feet physical distancing. So please keep in mind that any change to the instructional model would require us to bring back that language of where feasible for physical distancing. So that'll be a big factor in how we proceed. On a non-COVID related note, thank you for that, Wendy. We don't need that up there anymore. For the non-COVID related items tonight, flexible instructional days. You may recall that we've talked about flexible instructional days in the past, and those are days that school districts can use to count for a school day if the activities are planned ahead of time for whenever there's snow. Now, the flexible instructional days may not play so much of a role this year, but the application for flexible instructional days is a 2-year process or 2-year approval. So we applied for them and we have to make some modifications to our application, and we'll do that and resubmit them. Not uncommon for school districts to be asked to revise their applications for flexible instructional days, and we'll be doing that. If we are fortunate to get back to full-time face-to-face instruction, the flexible instructional days could come in handy should we have inclement weather or some other unforeseen activity that requires us to shut down a building or the whole school district for snow or whatever the case might be. So we are forging ahead with that application process and for the 2021 school year and the 21-22 school year. And the last item in the superintendent's report tonight is a student enrollment report, which will be attached to the superintendent's report.
Dr. Williams and President, I just wanted to inform you that the meeting has not been live. We just got messages from Mr. Henry. There was not a link on the website, so the public has not been able to access the meeting up until now. So my recommendation is that you would restart, do a quick re-vote on the one thing you voted on and a summary of what you've been covering, and then make sure the recording is posted live.
Okay. For a recap, now that we're online, we had the call to order with a roll call. All members were present. We've had the first round of public comment. Do we want to display those one more time? Let everybody see them. Okay. right, so then we put forth the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting of August 31st that were approved as provided. Mr. Sears, would you like to redo the consent agenda?
Yes, tonight we have a consent agenda. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below mentioned items.
Second.
Questions or comments? This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you. The board met in executive session in virtual meeting format prior to this meeting as permitted by Section 707 of the Sunshine Act for the purpose of discussing matters of personnel. No official action was taken. Dr. Williams, do you want to revisit?
Yeah, we'll revisit the superintendent's report, but before we do that, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Fogdahl, president of the Music Boosters Association, and for her to give an explanation about her group's work and what they do.
Thank you, Dr. Williams, and thank you all for inviting me to speak on behalf of the York Suburban Music Boosters Association tonight. My name's Elaine Fogdahl. I am the president of the YSMBA, and this is my second year in this role. I have a son who is a junior and involved in the band program at the high school, and I have a daughter who graduated in May and was involved in chorus and orchestra. So I'll briefly share a little background about the YSMBA and our accomplishments from the past year. And while I do that, I'm going to share my screen with you so that you can view some photos of our music department students. So let me get that set up. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. So the YSMBA was founded 36 years ago as the York Suburban Band Parents Association. It's evolved over the years and now incorporates all high school vocal and instrumental groups. Its purpose is to support and aid the YS high school music programs and directors. And there are three primary ways the YSMBA does this. We provide volunteer support, we provide financial support, including opportunities for students to fundraise, and we celebrate the accomplishments of our students and directors. So first, I'd like to tell you a little about our students. YS students enroll in performance ensembles in high school by taking chorus, orchestra, or band as a co-curricular subject. Students also participate in extracurricular groups, whether they're enrolled in a music class or not. Last school year, these groups included YS Singers, a cappella club, string ensemble, marching band, pep band, jazz band, the musical, and musical pit orchestra. So pep band was a new addition last year and became very popular at our home basketball games. Students can also apply for membership in the Triumph Music Honor Society, which hosts 2 recitals per year. Many of our students also choose to audition for various PMEA ensembles. That's the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association. This past school year, YS had 7 students qualify and attend district band, and 1 student qualify for regional band. 2 students qualify for district jazz band. 1 student qualify and attend district orchestra, and 1 student qualify and attend district chorus as well as regional chorus. YS was also well represented in the community with 10 students participating in York County Honor Band and Jazz Band, 8 high school students participating in York County Honors Choirs, and 4 high school students participating in the York Youth Symphony Orchestra. So we have a lot to celebrate, and our students, parents, and teachers are incredibly grateful for the support the school board and administration provides for these programs. Next, I'll talk about volunteerism. The YSMBA and the All Sports Boosters work together to operate and staff the Big Orange Cafe at fall football and soccer and spring relay events. Last fall, YS music students and their families contributed approximately 300 hours of their time to staff the concession stand at these events. Unfortunately, last spring's relay events were canceled and operations are on hold for the current school year, but we look forward to resuming this collaboration with sports boosters in the future. In a typical school year, our families also provide critical volunteer support for our extracurricular programs, including uniform, equipment, and hospitality for our marching band program, concession stand and hospitality for the YS Music Hall, and volunteers for the district-wide Arts and Music Festival. And we look forward to continuing to support those programs in the future as well. So proceeds from the concession stand, our annual membership drive, and other individual and group fundraising efforts enable the YSMBA to provide financial support for things like sending the drum majors for our marching band to camp, supplementing staffing, equipment, uniform, and supply costs for the marching band, providing meals for students participating in the musical, providing a reception for our graduating seniors following their last concert, and providing monetary awards for 4 music department award winners and scholarships for 3 of our music students. So while not all of these things were able to happen last school year, and some of them will not happen this school year, we are also looking for creative ways to support our music program, our directors, and our students. In closing, I want to once again thank the school board and administration for its support of our music programs. We are proud of our students, and we thank you again for all you do to support them. So I will stop sharing my screen, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Ellen, you're muted. Looks like you're talking.
Sorry, Elaine, is your current sign up form online for the 2021 school year to become a member of the Music Boosters?
Yes, it is. Thank
Okay.
you for asking, Ellen, and thank you for your support.
My pleasure.
Thinking, Mrs. Fogdahl, it would be appropriate for us to thank you for your volunteerism and hard work. Oftentimes it's a thankless job you've taken on, but as a board, we appreciate your efforts and all that you and your group do. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Fogdahl. Appreciate that very much.
Thank
Feel
you.
free to stick around.
All right, thank you. I'll probably watch offline, but thank you very much.
Take care. Okay, been through the superintendent's report already, but we'll go recap it again very quickly. The county, so far we've been in a month in school, or a little bit more than a month. We've had 1 confirmed case of COVID, either among students or staff. And there's a handful of students right now and 2 staff members who are currently quarantined because they've been in close contact with a suspected case. To date, we appear to be somewhat successful in avoiding the virus's spread, and I would like to thank everyone, students and staff, for their efforts in following proper safety measures. It is their hard work and diligence that creates a safe environment for learning. As we navigate the pandemic, there's lots of things to consider. One of those things to consider is a recent report that the Pennsylvania Department of Education engaged Mathematica in producing. And the report, a key finding in the Mathematica report is that blended or hybrid approaches to school reopening dramatically reduce the total number of likely infections in a school. The report shows that for blended models that are part-time in nature, schools can almost eliminate the spread of COVID-19 in school transmissions. And any spread would be community-based, not school-based. Our experiences thus far seem to correlate with Mathematica's findings. But things are going well, so we do need to have conversations about how we would change things and when we would change things. And Wendy, if you would throw the second chart up there, please, with the marking periods. The chart you're looking at now represent the timeframes in which we would make any kinds of decisions to change our instructional model. It's important to note that to increase our in-person learning, we would have to get a new modified health and safety plan approved by the school board. And the dates for those changes would be early October for marking period 2, right before Christmas for marking period 3, and soon after President's Weekend for marking period 4. And on the chart on screen, you can see those decision points in the top row, and each column would show the dates under which those changes would happen and how that would happen in preparation for the beginning of the second marking period, third marking period, or fourth marking period. One thing to keep in mind about these changes that we would eventually institute is that we have to look at the COVID numbers and how it's trending. And right now in York County, appears to be trending towards substantial. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to change to a fully online model, but it is a factor we need to consider when we are looking at how we're going to proceed. If we're going to proceed toward a more face-to-face instruction, we have to be mindful of the fact that we cannot honor 6 feet of physical distancing and have more students in our buildings at any one time. So that is an area of the health and safety plan that would have to be modified if we're going to go toward more face-to-face instruction. In an item unrelated to COVID, we applied for flexible instructional days. The state has looked over the applications of various school districts, and in most cases, they come back to the school districts and say, hey, you need to revise this, that, or the other thing. So the districts are in the process of doing that. We're no different than the other districts. We have some things to modify and resubmit. But if and when we get approved for flexible instructional days, we'll be approved for this school year and the following. So for 2021 and 21-22 school years. These flexible instructional days may not be so helpful during the pandemic, but when we go back to full-time face-to-face instruction, they'll be very important for when we have a snow day or we have some physical plant issue that keeps us from having school in person that day. We can use a flexible instructional day to count for a school day. So we'll keep you posted on that as that changes. And also as part of the superintendent's report, at the end I'll have posted the student enrollment report, and I'll have the full superintendent's report posted tomorrow on the superintendent's page on the website to recap everything we've done on the superintendent's report. So with that, are there any questions from the board members on the superintendent's report items that were in there? Okay, thank you very much. Before we get to the reports from the other administrators, item C is the first read of proposed policy revisions. This is still the first read. We looked at these last meeting on the 31st of August. So we're still in the first read phase. Next month will be second read. So we'll have a chance to look at them at the planning meeting and at the voting meeting next month, and approval next month. Any questions on any of those policies? Okay. And tonight, I think we have Dr. Stoltz and Mrs. Jackson. Dr. Stoltz, would you like to go first?
Certainly. I think Wendy is allowing me to share my screen. So I would like to start by acknowledging all of the work that was done prior to the start of school, and now that we're in school, to make our building ready for students and staff. All of these groups that I'm showing here made changes to their normal operating procedures so that our students and teachers and everyone feels that safety and security that's essential in order to come in each day and do our job, our teaching job and our student job. My last little block there, I give a special shout out to the parents because talk about changing your standard operating procedures. You are doing that both in the hybrid and in the TOPS model. So thank you for being our partners in your child's education. So because we're having that safety and security, our teachers are doing an amazing job at what they do best, and that is teaching our children. So due to your own school experience, you have a vision of what school looks like during our in-school days in our hybrid model. However, this year it's with masks and our social distancing. The children are doing a spectacular job with that. But I thought it would be helpful for you to see what school looks like in our virtual days. I will start with a first grade classroom. This gives you an example that when the children take their Chromebooks home, and we are one-to-one with Chromebooks now with kindergarten up through, our kindergarten students are still getting acclimated to their Chromebooks, learning their letters so that they can find those letters when they go home to do their learning. But this gives you an example of a first grade, what the child would see on their Chromebook when they're at their virtual learning days. As you see on the bottom, there are 6 boxes, and they work through these 6 boxes, which are their daily assignments. It should take approximately 3 hours. And part of what we have to help the children, and actually the parents understand, is there would be no expectation for a child to sit for 3 hours and do anything, although maybe play a video game, but not for school. The first links we're fortunate with our Wonders and our Everyday Math. We have common platform. It's called Connect Ed. And through these platforms, the children are either previewing or reviewing that which was taught in the classroom. Stories can be read to the students. They can do interactive activities. So it's a way of having them reinforce or preview information at home. The pretty lady that you see there with the blonde hair, that's Susan Herman, one of our reading specialists, and she helps the children with our Haggerty, which is a systematic phonemic awareness program that all of our children are working through. Spring Math is an additional layer of fact fluency, and this is where our own teachers are doing the lessons that are being pushed out to the students. I invite Wendy to share these with you, and you can click around. I made a copy so you wouldn't be messing anything up for a child or the teacher, but so that you can see these pre-recorded lessons that the teachers are doing. The same with the writing. We learned through our forward learning that rather than trying to teach in a Zoom format, doing the pre-recorded lessons and then having the students submit their work and providing feedback was a way more effective methodology of reviewing and previewing information. If I can give you a glimpse into a second grade classroom, the teachers are having a lot of fun creating these Zoom rooms. I don't know if I'm gonna. Can you hear that okay?
Barely.
I'll stop. I was hoping to get to the next slide. The next slide shows you in a similar fashion to first grade, they have a folder for each of the days. And again, in a similar fashion, they are reviewing or previewing information for their ELA through the Wonders program and through the Everyday Math and the Connect Ed. On Wednesdays, the teachers don't have students in front of them in the classroom, so this is where we add the layer of Zoom. We found through forward learning that the best thing of Zoom is that it gave us that social emotional connection with our students. And we have our A and our B students, so now through Zoom on Wednesdays, they are a class together. So they are doing their morning meetings, and they're also then going through those assignments that the students are going to be doing in the virtual sense on their own. However, through teacher office hours that we're able to offer on Wednesdays, and then also through small group instruction if the teacher is seeing that students need either extra support or extra acceleration. So as you can see, a whole lot of additional planning that the teachers have as they're planning for students in school and also those students at home, and then providing feedback in all of the various formats. So from last March, when we learned of this thing called forward learning and providing engaging instruction for our students, and also our teachers are respectful of the fact that these are young children that need support and help from a parent, but most of our parents are also trying to do their work. So through these classrooms that you see, a little preview of set up today, it's as much at an independent level for the child as possible. So again, if Wendy can get these sent to you so you could do some playing around in your with them yourself, I hope that you'll see that it's an interesting and new way of providing information for students when we aren't always face-to-face with them. Thank you.
That's really cool.
Thank
Hey,
you,
Ms. Joel Sears, I want to thank you very much for making that available to the board.
You're welcome, Joel.
Appreciate all the time and energy you've put into working out these plans and, and moving ahead, Kim. I know it's been a Herculean task for you and the staff. It shows all the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Alan, you might have been the one to say it the other evening, but I've heard it from so many teachers that and we have experienced teachers, they feel like this is their first year teachers. Yeah. They're working. We're all working really hard. Parents
Not only is it your first, it feels like your first year, but I think you more mature teachers have all these tricks in your bag, and perhaps some of the new people have some of the technology. So it's a good mixture of people working together.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Jackson.
Hi, everyone. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about what this new model looks like at the high school. So I took an opportunity that I had to interview many students, and you'll notice that I only hit the B days if you look at their last name. But I've got some quotes from some of our students, and then I also talked with our teachers. And so tonight I'd like to present to you a little bit about what it looks like from their perspective. And then, of course, as administrators, we've been observing all of this happen over the last few weeks. So if you take a look at the quotes on the screen, I'm kind of going to go through some talking points and allow you to read those on your own. But what I noticed in talking with students is that they're very appreciative of their face-to-face time with their teachers. They recognize that that is the key that they did not have in the spring. And they recognize that value of being able to come in person, and especially to check in with their teachers about the learning that occurs on those virtual days. Students' virtual days are similar for them between the AB days and their Wednesdays, except for some exceptions with some of the courses that Zoom 4 of the 5 days. They work on projects, they watch videos with interactive features, they might read materials that otherwise they'd be reading in class. And they've also had the opportunity to meet with their teachers via Zoom or by reaching out in email. One student said she checked in with all of her teachers, and within a half hour, she had feedback from each one of them. Teachers are utilizing technology in ways that they never had before. And it was interesting to hear the students talk about how it's not always without glitches, but they understand that, and they know that it's new for everyone in this model. Additional comments, students do feel safe with the face-to-face days because we're able to social distance and because students are wearing masks. As administrators, we've been so proud of the compliance with our students and the mask wearing. It's been phenomenal. One student commented that's the only thing he doesn't like about face-to-face instruction, and he mentioned the one-way hallways, which every student 9 through 12 has had to try to figure out. I think they're getting better as we go. feel a little bad for any student that comes in new. They not only need to learn a building, but they also need to learn directions from each class to class. But then another student commented that from what she's heard around the county, she feels as if we are very safe because we don't have crowding in our hallways and crowding in our classrooms. And she said that if we were all in, she would probably be online. So I think that says a lot about how safe our students do feel when they come. From the teacher perspective, I'll echo with what Dr. Stoltz said. This is so new to all of our teachers, and they are taking it day by day and doing the absolute best that they can. They are just as ecstatic to be face-to-face with their students, probably more so. And you can see, you know, Mrs. Hallman commented about how restorative it is to see their faces and how that time together is so precious. On the virtual days, please keep in mind that our teachers at the high school and actually K-12 are face-to-face 4 out of 5 days. So they're in essence simultaneously teaching half of their students on any given day. They plan for the entire week. I've heard that echoed from all of the teachers that I've spoken with. Often on weekends that planning occurs in order to deliver the in-person and virtual instruction effectively. And adapting the content takes a lot of time. And I heard that not only from teachers, but also from Mrs. Cunningham, who is helping a lot of those teachers adapt their content. For example, a 15-minute video could take 45 minutes to an hour to film, edit, and publish for students. They plan engaging activities to the best extent possible. A quiz might turn into a slide presentation with audio that demonstrates students' understanding. A video demo that in class would be shown with the teacher pausing to elaborate turns into an interactive video online with embedded quiz questions. And those are just a couple examples of the myriad of ways our teachers are adapting their content for effective online instruction. On Wednesdays, it's an opportunity for our teachers to calibrate their pacing, to ensure that the most essential content is still being delivered in the most timely manner, and to ensure equity across sections of the same course. They plan and develop the delivery of that online content. They participate in professional development that helps them with that. And recently at the high school, we had a meeting in which we continued focusing on understanding by design and curriculum work that's related to what teachers are currently doing. So they had to step back and take a look at what is antiquated that needs to be cut, what is classic that we need to keep and find ways to continue to instruct our students with, and then what is new that we can do, create that will allow that essential knowledge to continue to be worked out through the curriculum. And they would have been doing this regardless of the pandemic. This is just one more opportunity while they're making these adaptations to start thinking of it through the understanding by design lens. And this coming Wednesday, high school faculty will spend a portion of their morning participating in professional development led by Melissa Plotkin from formerly of the JCC regarding equity and inclusion. And then the rest of their day is spent in that planning and curriculum development, and then being available to their students live for office hours. And that's in a nutshell. Any questions?
Thank you to you and this, is it open? Yeah. Thank you to you and the secondary staff, because these kids are just about up with you when it comes to the technology. So you have to be 3 steps ahead of them, you know, kind of stuff. So we appreciate those efforts. It's good to hear that they appreciate what you're trying to do and understand, you know, it's good.
I think they do overall, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, could you indulge me by just re-voting on the minutes you approved earlier in the meeting? Then we should have everything taken care of.
Okay. You have a link to the minutes from the Planning Committee meeting of August 31st, 2020. Are there any corrections or changes? If not, I propose that they be approved as submitted.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chuli.
Okay, the first item is the consent agenda. You have before you the business office report, which includes items 1 and 2. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, I would ask that a motion be made to approve the below mentioned items.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item B is an annual renewal for a service agreement with the Lincoln IU 12 to provide services for individuals with disabilities under the Disabilities Act. And this is for the 2021 school year. There is a net increase of $53,757 over the 1920 school year.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Okay, then this can also be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item C is also IDEA. This is for section 619. This is also an annual renewal. And this federal funding is a pass-through that targets kindergarten students receiving special education within the district or early intervention services at the IU.
So moved.
Second.
So who moved? Rich?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item D is an RFP that we had done. We're asking the board to approve Life Touch as our vendor for school pictures. This will be effective July 1st of 2021 for a 3-year term with a possible additional 2-year terms. I've attached a bid ratification and our results. We did have a committee review the proposals, and the committee is looking forward to having Life Touch continue services with less disruption in our buildings and continuity of services.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Are the prices that they're going to be charging, Mrs. Chili, about what they've done in the past? Just curious.
Yes, they provided samples based on what we asked them so that we can compare apples to apples. But their packages are the same as in prior years.
Okay, thank you.
This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item E, we're asking for approval to participate in the LIU bid process. We do this annually, and we're just asking for approval to continue.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item F. Item F is a recommendation from the administration to approve the agreement. It's an addendum to the substitute teacher services. This is to provide long-term substitute services at a daily rate of $231.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, before we
Questions?
vote, I'm sorry, I wanted to provide an explanation.
Okay.
So typically we would hire our long-term subs in-house. If we hire long-term subs, we would have to put them on the salary matrix. So they would receive a bachelor's step 1 plus full benefits. That can range between $90,000 and $103,000 with a daily rate that averages between $475 a day to $544. So as a cost savings measure, we decided to approach STS to see if they could provide us this service. And while the 231 is higher than the day-to-day, we're asking a substitute to commit to a long-term. And so we have to be more competitive in our rating.
What do you actually consider long-term? At what point is it not day-to-day, but long-term?
Most substitute agencies consider anything 20 days of consecutive days. By school code, I believe it's 90. Attorney Say can correct me if I'm incorrect, but that's a long term. It has to be on the same assignment for a certain amount of days.
20 or 90? I'm not clear on that.
By school code, it's 90 days.
90 days.
The service will ask you for a long-term sub rate of anything over 20 days.
Oh, okay. Anything over 20. Okay, so between 20 and 90 then,
Yes.
right? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathy, is the expectation that the teacher gets the 175?
The teacher will, the base rate is 175 and STS puts a markup price of 32%.
I understand that, but is the expectation that the teacher receives 175?
Yes.
And then in that markup, does that also include the Social Security and Medicare contribution of the employer?
We would assume that STS is covering all benefits by law and then providing health care depending on whether or not they've met their qualifications under the Affordable Cares Act.
So
The 32% is supposed to cover all of that.
and what would you anticipate our usage of this service to be during a typical year? How many long-term subs are we dealing with typically?
I would have to defer to HR.
Typically on the long-term subs, some years we go without any. Sometimes it might be 1, maybe 2. I don't think I've ever had more than 2.
I've talked to some other folks around the county, and in their school districts, long-term subs have obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but because of the way they've reopened their districts, it's become quite a problem. My assumption is we're not having that issue here. Is that a good assumption? We didn't see a lot of teachers bail, opening up a need for a lot of long-term subs.
I would agree that's correct, Joel, as far as long-term subs. Across the board, subs are hard to find to begin with, just on a day-to-day basis. But I will echo what Kathy said, and when we consider a long-term sub, it is 90 days. So to pay that rate would be for someone who's out for an entire semester. So I think that might be why we find that we use them less, because we're actually looking for a teacher who would not be here for at least half of a school year.
Thank you.
While we're on this topic, could you confirm for me the normal daily rate a substitute is paid, not long-term?
The daily substitute is paid through STS at 175. I'm sorry, 145.
No, 105.
No, the plus the 32% markup.
Oh, yeah, our cost, yeah.
Thank you.
The sub is getting 105 then, right? Is that what you're saying, Sandy?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, when they're paid through STS, are they also getting PSERs and things like that, or they're not? They don't get PSERs, do they?
They do not.
Okay.
Other questions? I think this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item G is another renewal vote. We're asking the board to approve the Drug and Alcohol Student Assistance Program Service Agreement between True North Wellness Services and York Suburban for the 2021 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? I think this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item H is the approval of 2 bus van drivers through Reliance for the 2021 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Item I, the administration is requesting the board approve parcel, and you see the parcel number there, be permitted to pay the 2020 real estate tax payment at a 2% discount as long as payment is received within 5 days contingent on board approval.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Could you kind of give us an explanation of why we're doing this?
Yes, sir. So the taxpayer emailed me last week stating that he went to the tax collector's office during office hours 10 days prior to the deadline for discount. He went several times and the office was not open. He was forced to leave it in the drop box. After learning that he had to leave it in the drop box, he went home several days later. He called the office, asked if she had the check, no, and then follow up several days later. Till today, the tax collector has said that she has not received a check. And obviously it's past the discounted period. August 31st is after the discount period. And so he's requesting that we accept his payment at the 2% due to no fault of his own.
Thank you. Other questions?
So is the check lost?
Yeah, I mean,
It's assumed that it is. He has put a stop payment on it.
Other questions?
Yeah, not to drag this out, Kathy, but do we have any alternatives?
We
In
do
other
not.
words, could we use the York Area Tax Bureau to collect these payments?
no.
This
Or do
is
we
an
have no
elected
choice in the
position.
matter?
I would defer to Attorney Say, but this is an elected position. Someone can vote, run against her, or she could decide not to collect taxes anymore.
That's a
Well,
pretty
she's a
accurate
township.
description.
She's a township official, not a district official.
But she's elected by the township to collect taxes on behalf of the district.
So
Okay.
is that not severable, Brooke? That we can't say, all right, go ahead and pay your township taxes to her, but not your school taxes?
I don't know the details of this arrangement. I need to see the agenda item again, if you can throw that back up on the screen.
I've had conversations with a number of people that have had terrible problems when they go to make their tax payments. Either the office is closed or they see envelopes strewn all over the floor. It's extremely sloppy.
So I'm not going to give a full legal analysis in public session about options with respect to tax collectors. But if you have concerns, certainly conversations with the township would be in order. And Mr. Chuli and I can look at that if the board is so directing that we address it.
Kathy, can I ask, is this Spring Garden or Springettsbury? This property?
Spring Garden.
Okay.
I would just echo Joel's remark. I also have had a number of people say to me that it's less than desirable. I'll just leave it at that in terms of person-to-person tax paying has been less than desirable. I'll just leave it there.
So is it the will of the board that Attorney Say and Kathy begin discussions with the township over this?
I would give you a yay on that.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, I guess. Go ahead.
Hearing no arguments against, I would say yes. Then.
And what was the township again? Spring Garden?
Spring Garden.
Well, that's pretty easy, seeing as their solicitor is also my partner. I'll have a conversation.
All right, thank you. So I guess if there were no other questions, I guess this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. Last item on the business office report is the terms and conditions for Valencia Ballroom for the 2021 prom.
So moved.
Second.
And there is language in the contract that says if COVID prevents, we get our money back.
Yes.
Yeah, but even more interesting, Kathy, and it's just, I don't know who gave you this form, but it's kind of sloppy. It says at the bottom under cancellation, if Valencia Ballroom is unable to host your event due, D-O instead of D-U-E. Really? I mean, I wouldn't want to sign something like that. I think that's pretty sloppy. Just an observation, because I'm the one that proofs these things.
Believe it or not, I think that form is actually an improvement over prior years, but you're right, it's probably not where it should be. I've seen it in numerous districts.
Yeah, just, all right, you know.
So I guess this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. And that oh, there's one more item actually, and that is the food service report. It's the food service dining report. We do not have the regular monthly report because mid-August we changed to free meals, and we're still waiting for the state to approve our application. We're guaranteed that our application is going to be approved, but we don't have that yet. So we're waiting for that to happen.
Thank you. Ms. Bowen.
Hi, everyone. Luckily, I haven't really heard many concerns coming from the student body. So I believe everything's going well from all grade levels, both in person and remote. Elementary has just sent their Chromebooks home with their kids this past week, and they're now participating in some engaging online activities. Aside from this, many clubs have been getting started at the high school. The Gay Straight Alliance Club and the National Society just had their first meetings of the year on Thursday, September 17th. York Suburban's eSport League, Project Harmony, and Puzzle Partners are all looking to have their first meetings this week. Minithon is holding a car wash in the student parking lot at the high school this Sunday from 1 to 4, and all proceeds from that will go towards the event later in the year. In student council, the voter registration committee is trying to get students who will be 18 on or before November 3rd registered to vote for this upcoming election. For homecoming, So homecoming court voting has been opened as of this morning and will close tomorrow at 3. So we will know that, I think, on Wednesday. Also, the students will be decorating the hallways this Friday and Saturday for Homecoming Spirit Week next week. And our theme this year is seasons. Additionally, sports seasons are officially up and running. And our golf and girls tennis teams have had a number of matches so far. And our football season kicked off on Saturday with a successful win. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we're trying to ensure that we can keep our schools open and seasons going. So there are not many tickets available for spectators. However, some games are to be broadcasted live. The rest of our fall sports kick off their seasons in this coming week. And this concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You have a link here to the committee meeting schedule, and we'll start with Academic Standards and Curriculum Committee. Mr. Scalette.
Yes, thank you. We met on September 16th at 4 p.m. and approved the May 20 minutes. We listened to an administrator's report on building level achievement planning, and we heard from each administrators at each building. And then we were presented with updates on the modes of learning for both the top and hybrid experiences that the students are encountering. And that discussion took us nearly through to the end of the meeting. So there was a robust set of questions and answers, and the reports all around were very interesting with the updates. There was an agenda that we did not finish, and so we ended the meeting with a decision to add an additional meeting, which will take place on October 7th at 4 p.m. And at that time, we'll continue the agenda that we started last week. And that will include further updates on hybrid and TOPS program, and further discussion of the York Suburban curriculum in light of the events of the past 6 months. And so I encourage anyone who's interested in the academic curriculum to join this meeting. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Personnel Committee, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Posnell. The chair recommends approval of the Memorandum of Understanding between York Suburban Educational Support Personnel Association, YSESPA, and the York Suburban School District, YSSD. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? I think this can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Item 2, consent agenda. You have before you the personnel report, which includes resignations, employment, and extracurricular. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below mentioned items.
Second.
Questions or comments? This can be a unanimous roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
And before I conclude my report, Mr. Posnell, I would just like to express my joy and rapture in announcing that Sherry Campbell will be joining us. And on the advice of informed sources, I will say no more and turn the floor over to her to say a few words.
Good deal.
Good evening, this is Sherry, and I'm happy to be here tonight. I just received word today that my employment was going to be approved, so I'm happy that I was able to jump on the call tonight. But I'm really looking forward to coming to your district.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to having you.
Yeah, welcome. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And hail to Pitt.
Of course.
And on that note, let's move
That
on.
concludes my report.
Policy review, Mr. Tolman.
Hello, everyone. The Policy Review Committee met on September 16th and had to cut short Mr. Skelet's meeting because we met right after them. Our meeting, we discussed 9 upcoming policy revisions that are being proposed. They will be on our first planning meeting agenda in October for first read. And they cover board membership, board organization, board attendance at meetings via electronic communications, immunizations and communicable diseases, health examinations and screenings, tobacco and vaping products for students, suspension and expulsion, hazing, and dating violence. The committee recommended that all these should move forward. We did not have any issues with the revisions set forth by the administration. We approved the July 10th of 2019 minutes because we have not met in a long time. Policy review, and those are provided here. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Property and Finance, Mr. Sears.
Okay, Property and Finance Committee met on, September 9th. We reviewed and approved the minutes of the August 12th meeting that is attached through a link for your information. On the property side, we discussed bids for the mechanical systems feasibility study. There was a significant difference between the low and high bidders, which we understand reflected the prior work and the familiarity with our systems and some hourly rate differences. This feasibility study is expected to take about 90 days to complete. We proved that earlier this evening. We discussed, the status of the gym floor project. The work is complete and to our satisfaction. However, there's still a $10,000 claim, and I'll put that in quotes, by the general architect relative to unanticipated administrative oversight. That is still unresolved as of this date. On the finance side, Ms. Chichuli reported that we've spent $691,000 roughly to date on COVID-specific expenses, and that roughly $446,000 of that was dedicated to the top development issues, another $225,000 for COVID-specific expenses other than curriculum development. Mrs. Chichuli also reviewed the 2021-22 budget timeline, noting that the Act 1 index at that date had not been published as of the date of the meeting. Our next meeting has been postponed until October 22nd at 4 p.m. We adjourned the meeting at around 6:20. That's my report.
Okay, thank you.
Question. Have we gotten an Act 1 number yet?
No,
Okay.
I looked today.
All right. Thank
The legislative update, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Pose. Now, before we get to the moment you've all been waiting for this evening, I'd just like to mention that October 8th is PSBA's Online Advocacy Day. So if anybody would like to sign up for this event and join me and whoever else wants to come, I'm sure it will be a fascinating and scintillating day conferring with our state representatives and senators. In addition, some of you may have been waiting for a report from the meeting with Mr. Sears and I with State Senator Dave Arnold. The senator canceled at the last minute, promising he would reschedule. We're still waiting. And the Springersbury Township Planning Commission was canceled. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the election of PSBA officers. We can vote tonight, I believe. There's only one contested office, and that would be for the office of Vice President. There is a Mr. O'Keefe running against a Miss Blacker, If any of you have had a chance to review the video presentations of each one, they both have hopelessly impeccable credentials. From my perspective, Mr. O'Keefe speaks a little bit more to some of the broad-based challenges that all districts in the state will be facing. Whether or not that makes him a superior candidate, I could not say conclusively, but I think he appears to be a little bit stronger. On that note, I'm not quite sure how we conduct the voting procedures, but other than the office of vice president, none of the offices are contested. Any questions?
I would just voice that I would be backing Ms. Backer. I know
Okay.
some of her work and some of the work that she has done with those who will be moving into leadership positions. And I think they'd make a very good, strong team.
Okay.
So Attorney
Any other
Say,
comments or questions?
Attorney Say, how do we navigate through this?
So typically you get a ballot. Kathy, did PSBA send over ballots?
We do them electronically now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, normally board members fill out something. So do they have that in their
packets?
Yeah.
Ms. Irwine, did we provide that to the board members?
No, we only had what their website said, the link that's on the agenda.
So I guess each board member could just go around and state who they're voting for publicly. I think that's probably the easiest way, or we can entertain a motion. It's a little non-traditional. Normally we're in person and there's an actual ballot. So however you want to do it with the motion or each board member reflecting their ballot entry. And remind me, do you guys have to have, do you end up voting as a unit or do each of your votes go separately?
As a unit. I believe it's as a unit.
Okay.
I put in the vote for them. So they select which individuals they want.
As a board, though.
Right.
York Suburban gets one vote for each office.
So you can either, there are two candidates, you can either voice vote who you're voting for and we'll see who we get 5 on, or you could do a motions process and see if you get 5 on that first motion. It doesn't really matter.
Let's try a voice vote.
Well, actually, it's open until October 11th. Do you just want to have a motion on the October 2nd meeting?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. And you can do a little research.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Well, on that note, that concludes my report.
All right. Ms. Farrar.
Yes, you have before you the Dawn's Early Light, which is the report from the LIU board meeting of September 1st. They are busy out there. They are working through virtual meetings just as everybody else is. So you can read the Dawn's Early Light. The LIU Joint Operating Authority, we have our finally having a quarterly meeting coming up tomorrow. We're going to be looking at some paving requirements that have to be done around the York Learning Center. And it'll give us a chance to catch up on how things are going at the York Learning Center. York Adams Academy, I'm pleased to report that once again, we have 15 of our 15 seats is filled. So we're doing really well at 100%. I think all but 1 week so far this school year. And we are continuing with our weekly pickup and exchange of materials on Wednesdays by the students. Faculty comes in, they know what the students want because they have let them know, and it is working out rather well. So we're continuing along that vein. And you also have the York Adams Academy board briefs from our August 25th meeting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. York Adams Tax Bureau.
No report.
York County School of Technology.
Yes, instruction at the York County School of Technology has been going well as far as I know, using their hybrid instruction model. I'll be attending a JOC meeting later this week. And as far as the authority goes, construction of the new gymnasium is progressing nicely. Unless there are questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you. You have a link here to the activities. You also have a link to the calendar for upcoming events. Yeah, I would like to take this minute to thank all the people that sit sit in and watch us online for this. There's a link to the board meeting schedule, and this is our last opportunity for public comment. If we could take a look.
I did not see additional public comment.
Okay, wow, great. So unless anybody has any other comments, I think we are adjourned. Thank you.